Aunt Lisa has never been great at spotting red flags in men. And last Thanksgiving, she decided it was finally time for the family to meet the guy she'd been seeing for 7 or 8 weeks. His name was Evan, and according to her, he was some kind of traveling IT consultant who fixed problems for big companies up and down the West Coast. We live in Eugene, smallish house. Maybe 12 people total once everyone piles in with kids and casseroles. She texted my mom the week before, asking if she could bring him. And of course, Mom said yes because that's who she is. The day went about like it always does. People trickled in between 2 and 4. The kitchen got loud and steamy. The Ducks game played on the living room TV with the volume low. Evan showed up with Lisa, right at 3:30 in a dark gray peacoat, even though it was barely cold enough for a jacket. He carried a bottle of wine nobody asked for, and a bakery pie in a plastic clamshell. First thing he did was walk straight through the house, shaking every single hand like he was running for office, repeating names back to people so they'd think he was paying attention. Something about the way he scanned the room while he did it stuck with me, but I brushed it off. We ate around 5. Long table stretched from the dining room into the hall. Kids at the card table in the corner, paper napkins with turkeys on them. Evan sat across from my dad and spent most of the meal asking quiet questions about work schedules, who traveled for the holidays, whether we kept spare keys under mats or in those fake rocks. He phrased everything like casual conversation, but it added up after a while. Lisa kept beaming at him like he was charming the socks off everyone. Halfway through seconds, his phone started vibrating non-stop in his pocket. He ignored it at first, then finally excused himself and stepped out the back slider to the deck. Cold air rolled in when he opened the door. He stayed out there almost 10 minutes pacing and talking low. When he came back inside, his cheeks were red from the wind, and he smelled faintly like cigarette smoke, even though Lisa swore he'd quit years ago. Dessert was barely on the table when he said he felt a migraine coming on and asked if he could lie down somewhere quiet for a bit. Lisa jumped up to show him the guest room upstairs. She came back down alone a minute later, saying he just needed 20 minutes in the dark. We all went on with pie and coffee. The kids disappeared to play Fortnite in the basement, and the adults started telling the same old stories. An hour passed, and Lisa went up to check. She came down looking puzzled, then worried. The guest room was empty, bedspread still smooth. We spread out looking. Bathrooms, garage, even the attic pull-down nobody ever uses. Nothing. His coat was gone from the hook by the door, but his car was still parked out behind my uncle's truck. My dad walked outside to see if maybe he'd gone for air again. That's when he noticed the dome light glowing in Evan's rental sedan. Driver door cracked open. Wind flipping pages of something on the passenger seat. Dad reached in and pulled out a plain manila folder. Inside were photos printed off Google Street View. Front of our house, back of our house, close-ups of the side gate and the window locks. A typed list of every car in the driveway with license plates and who they belonged to. Handwritten notes about the dog next door being old and half-deaf, which windows had those cheap stick-on alarms, and a little timeline of when the last person usually left after Thanksgiving. Lisa sat down hard on the porch steps and started shaking. She kept saying she didn't understand, because he'd told her everything about himself. Turned out the name he'd given her wasn't even on the rental agreement for the car. Police came, took the folder, ran the plates. The car belonged to some identity theft ring working holiday gatherings up in Seattle and down through Oregon. They'd send a clean-cut guy in to date someone lonely, get invited to the family meal, map the house, then hit it a week or 2 later when everyone was gone for Christmas shopping. We changed the locks that same weekend and put cameras up before December. Lisa still won't talk about dating at all. Every time the doorbell rings around the holidays now, we all freeze for a second before anyone moves to answer it. My Aunt Rita hosts Thanksgiving every year, at her place in the suburbs outside Charlotte, North Carolina. It's one of those older neighborhoods with big yards and mature trees, the kind where houses are spread out enough that you can't really see into your neighbor's windows. She's been in that house for something like 15 years, raised my cousins there, and nothing bad has ever happened in that neighborhood as far as I know. It's quiet, mostly retirees and families with young kids. This particular Thanksgiving, it was just going to be a smaller group. Me, my mom, Aunt Rita, her husband Dave, and their daughter Jenna, who's a year younger than me. We got there around 2 in the afternoon. Aunt Rita had the parade on TV, even though none of us were really watching it. We were all just hanging out in the kitchen while she cooked, drinking wine and talking. Dave was handling the turkey on the grill outside, which he does every year because he says it frees up the oven. Jenna and I were catching up, since we hadn't seen each other in a few months. She goes to school in Tennessee, so we don't get together that often anymore. The whole vibe was relaxed and comfortable. Exactly what Thanksgiving should be. Dinner was ready around 6, maybe a little after. We all sat down at the dining room table and started passing dishes around. The food was great like always. Aunt Rita goes all out with the sides: cornbread stuffing, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, the whole thing. We were probably 20 minutes into eating when the doorbell rang. Dave got up to answer it. We heard him open the door and talk to someone for a minute, though we couldn't make out what was being said. When he came back to the table, he said it was some guy asking if he could use the phone because his car broke down a few streets over. Dave told him he didn't feel comfortable with that and suggested he knock on one of the other neighbors' doors. My mom said that was the right call. You can't just let strangers into your house anymore. We went back to eating and talking. Maybe 10 minutes passed. The doorbell rang again. This time Aunt Rita went to answer it, and when she came back she looked a little annoyed. She said it was the same guy, asking if they had any tools he could borrow. She told him no, and to please stop coming back. Dave said if he comes back again, he's calling the police. Jenna was the one who noticed the guy standing in their backyard. She was facing the sliding glass door that looks out onto the deck and yard. She stopped mid-sentence and said, "Mom, there's someone in the backyard." We all turned around. There was a man standing near the fence at the back of the yard, just standing there looking at the house. Dave got up immediately and went to the sliding door, opening it and yelling, "Hey, get the hell out of my yard." The guy didn't move at first. Then he turned and walked along the fence line toward the side of the house and out of view. Dave shut and locked the sliding door. He said we should call the police. This was getting out of hand. Aunt Rita agreed. But before Dave could get his phone out, there was knocking on the side door that leads into the garage. Not doorbell ringing this time, actual pounding on the door. Dave went into the garage through the inside door, the one that connects to the kitchen. We heard him yell, "I'm calling the cops right now, get away from my house." When he came back into the dining room, he had his phone out and was already dialing. He told the dispatcher that someone was harassing them and trespassing on their property. He gave the address and described what had been happening. The dispatcher told him to stay inside with the doors locked and that officers were on the way. We all moved into the living room, away from the windows. Dave turned on the porch light and the floodlights in the backyard. Aunt Rita was visibly shaken. My mom tried to reassure her, saying the police would be there soon, and this was probably just some drunk person or someone having a mental health crisis. I wanted to believe that, but something felt wrong about how persistent this person was being. We sat there in the living room for what felt like forever but was probably only around 10 minutes. Then we heard something hit the front door, a loud thud. Dave looked through the peephole and said he didn't see anyone. He opened the door just a crack with the chain still on. There was a plastic gas can sitting on the front porch. It was empty. Dave shut the door immediately and locked it. He picked up his phone and called 911 again, telling them someone just left a gas can on the porch and asking where the officers were. Jenna grabbed my arm. She was looking at her phone. She said, "Dad, I just got a notification from the Ring camera. Someone's at the back door." "We don't have a Ring camera." Dave told her to show him. She pulled up the notification and it was from a Ring account we didn't recognize, showing a live view of Aunt Rita's back door. Someone was watching the house and had somehow connected a camera or hacked into a neighbor's camera feed and sent Jenna the access link. Dave told everyone to get away from the windows and stay in the center of the house. We moved into the hallway. My heart was pounding. This wasn't just some random drunk person. This felt planned. We heard the police sirens a few minutes later, around 6:45 or so. 2 police cars pulled up. Dave went outside to talk to them while we stayed inside. The officers searched the yard and the surrounding area but didn't find anyone. One of them came inside and took our statements. He looked at Jenna's phone and the ring notification. He said this was concerning and that they'd patrol the area throughout the night. He also said they'd try to trace where that ring link came from. The officer asked if Aunt Rita or Dave had any idea who might do this. Dave mentioned that he'd had an issue with a contractor a few months back, someone he'd hired to do work on the deck, who did a terrible job. Dave had refused to pay the final payment and left a bad review online. The contractor had sent some nasty messages after that. But it had died down. The officer wrote that information down and said they'd follow up. We didn't finish Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone was too rattled. My mom and I left around 8. Aunt Rita said they were going to stay with Dave's brother for a few days until they felt safe again. The police never found out who it was for certain, but the harassment stopped after that night. Whether it was the contractor or someone else, I don't know. What I do know is that you never really think something like that will happen to your family until it does. I always volunteer for the Thanksgiving evening shift at the hospital in Medford. Somebody has to cover it. The money's double time. And honestly, it's easier than sitting through another year of my parents' divorce fallout. Mom spends the day at her sister's in Ashland now. Dad drinks with his buddies and watches football alone in Roseburg. And I get to skip the whole awkward dance of choosing whose table to sit at. By the time my 12-hour shift ends at 11:30, the family stuff is long over anyway. Everybody's asleep off turkey and wine. So I just head home to Grants Pass, heat up the plate Mom dropped off the day before, and call it a night. This was last Thanksgiving, 2024. I'd worked a full floor of post-op patients who all wanted extra pain meds because their families stressed them out, then spent an hour restocking the crash cart while the charge nurse played some old country playlist about being thankful. I finally clocked out, changed into jeans and a hoodie in the locker room and rolled out in the convertible Mustang I only take out when the weather cooperates. It was a weirdly warm night for November, almost 55 degrees, so I put the top down, cranked the seat heat, and let the cold air keep me awake for the drive. Highway 62 was deserted, just the way I like it after a shift like that. Leftover stuffing smell still on my clothes, half a pumpkin pie waiting in the fridge. No obligations until Black Friday shift at 3. About 15 minutes north of town, the road cuts between old orchards and thick pine. No streetlights, just my headlights and a sky full of stars. I had the music low, some random playlist shuffling, doing 60 and thinking about nothing, when a woman's scream tore across the pavement, raw, terrified like someone getting dragged away right then. It came from the tree line on the left. Another scream followed. "Help me. Please God, help me," over and over. I slammed the brakes, tires chirping. For a second, everything was quiet except my engine ticking. Then it started again, desperate, closer to sobbing that time. I keep a collapsible baton in the door pocket ever, since some guy followed me to my car last spring. I grabbed it, left the headlights on full bright and started yelling toward the trees asking if she was hurt. The voice answered immediately, begging me to come quick. She couldn't move. I told her to keep calling out so I could find her and started pushing through the branches, sweeping the flashlight on my phone, telling her I was coming. She'd scream every few seconds, "Help, over here," and I'd run toward it, pine needles slapping my face, boots slipping on the damp ground. But after a couple minutes of hauling ass straight at the sound, I realized something sickening. It never got louder, never closer. The scream stayed exactly the same distance ahead, no matter how fast I moved. like the voice was walking away at my exact pace. I stopped, chest heaving, and shouted for her to say anything else. Give me a name. Tell me what happened. Nothing. Just another help a few seconds later. Same pitch, same volume. The woods felt wrong. Too quiet except for that voice leading me deeper. I turned and started back toward the road, moving fast, and the screams shifted with me. Still the same distance off, like whatever was making them, was now keeping perfect pace through the trees to my left. I burst out onto the asphalt sweating, heart slamming against my ribs. My car sat there idling, headlights carving tunnels through the dark. The screaming kept going for 3 or 4 more cries even after I jumped in and locked the doors, then stopped dead the second I shifted into drive. I called the sheriff from the next turnout with real signal and told them everything. They said a unit would sweep the area. I didn't wait around. A week and a half later, a hiker found a woman's body off an old fire road, less than a mile from where I'd pulled over. Late 20s, no clear cause of death. Exposure, maybe. The news never mentioned screams or my call, and nobody ever followed up with me. I still drive that stretch every shift. Some nights when the windows are down and it's dead quiet, I swear I hear it again. Help me. Always just far enough into the trees that you'd have to leave the road to find out. I don't stop anymore. This happened Thanksgiving night 2020, right in the middle of all the COVID restrictions. I was 26 and still living at home with my mom, in a quiet neighborhood in Overland Park, Kansas. My older brother Matt had driven in from Wichita the night before, and our Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, came over too because her kids were stuck in Colorado with the travel bans, so it was just the 5 of us. Tiny group. But we went all out anyway. Deep-fried turkey, honey-glazed ham, garlic mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, those Hawaiian rolls everybody fights over, pumpkin pie, pecan pie, and my mom's famous bourbon cranberry sauce. We ate at exactly 5:30 like we always have since I was a kid. It was snowing hard that day, the heavy, wet kind that sticks to everything and kills the power lines. By 7:30, the streets were empty, and the whole world outside looked like static on an old TV. We had the Chiefs game on. They were playing the late game that year. Fireplace going, lights dimmed low, plates stacked in the sink. Perfect cozy night. Nobody was coming over, nobody was leaving. The roads were already getting bad. Around 8:45, the doorbell rang. We all froze. Mom muted the TV. My brother laughed and said, "If that's Dad trying to do some surprise redemption arc, I'm gonna lose it." Our parents split when I was 12, and he's only shown up unannounced twice in 14 years, both times drunk. Mom told me to go look. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and walked to the front door. The porch light was on, but the snow was coming down so thick it looked like a white wall. I yelled, "Who is it?" Through the door. Nothing at first, just the wind. Then a man's voice, muffled but polite. "Hey man, I'm really sorry to bother you on Thanksgiving. My girlfriend and I slid off the road about 2 blocks down. Phones are dead and we're freezing. Any chance we could come in for 5 minutes just to warm up and call a tow?" I cracked the interior door but kept the storm door locked and looked out. White guy, maybe early 30s, puffy black Carhartt jacket, snow all over his shoulders, knit cap pulled low, hands in his pockets, rocking back and forth like he was cold. Behind him, the driveway was nothing but swirling white. I couldn't see a car or anyone else. He seemed legit. Voice was calm, not aggressive. And it was Thanksgiving. I turned back toward the living room and whispered, "Some guy says he slid off the road with his girlfriend, phone's dead, wants to come in to warm up and call AIA. My mom immediately said, "Absolutely not." My Aunt Linda, sweetest woman on planet Earth, said, "It's Thanksgiving, snowing, they're stuck. Let them in for 10 minutes. My brother shrugged and said, "I'll stand right here with the baseball bat if it makes everyone feel better." Mom was still shaking her head, but Linda kept pushing the whole holiday spirit thing, and honestly, I felt bad. The guy looked miserable. I opened the storm door about 6 inches and told him, "Look, you can come in for a minute, but just you and just to the foyer. I'll grab you some coffee and call the tow truck myself." He nodded fast. Said, "Thank you, man, seriously. God bless you." The second I swung the door wider, he lunged, full body weight, and shoulder checked it open. I stumbled back into the entryway table, knocking the lamp over. He was way bigger than he looked in the snow. Behind him, I heard boots pounding up the porch steps fast. 2 more guys in dark coats came out of nowhere, faces covered with gaiters, charging the door like they'd been crouched in the bushes the whole time. I don't even remember deciding to fight. I just did. I threw my weight against the door and screamed "Matt" at the top of my lungs. My brother was already sprinting down the hallway with the aluminum bat from the closet. The first guy had 1 foot inside and was trying to wedge his arm through. I slammed the door on his forearm as hard as I could, heard him grunt, and Matt got there just in time to help me shove. We got it closed and locked the deadbolt while the guy on the other side started pounding and cursing. Mom was already on the phone with 911. Aunt Linda was crying. I ran to the back door, made sure it was locked, then the side garage door. Through the kitchen window, I saw shadows moving along the fence line, flashlights cutting through the snow. One of them tried the back door handle, rattled it hard. Then they must have realized the whole house was lit up, and people were screaming because the shapes just vanished into the white. Cops showed up in under 8 minutes, found footprints all over the side yard and porch, plus a crowbar half buried in the snow by the back steps. The plate of pie my aunt had insisted I bring out for the girlfriend was sitting untouched on the porch railing, snow already covering it. They never caught them. Said it was the 3rd stranded motorist attempt in Johnson County that week. Same basic script, different neighborhoods. One of the other houses wasn't as lucky. An elderly couple let 2 guys in and got robbed at gunpoint. We installed Ring cameras the next day and added those steel security storm doors with the reinforced glass. My mom still makes the exact same spread every year. But now the curtains stay closed after dark on Thanksgiving, and nobody answers the door ever. I still think about how close it was. 10 more seconds, and they would have been inside with my mom, my aunt, my little cousin's Xbox controllers, and 0 weapons except a baseball bat and holiday rage. Be careful out there, man. Some people see a lit-up house on Thanksgiving and all they feel is hungry,